Hi, and a warm welcome to this FAMO Fascia Movement Education in Motion conversation. Today, Mumu and I want to practice and dissect two exercises that we absolutely adore. It is the basic roll-up preparation and a basic roll-up. Now, sometimes what we hear is, this exercise looks like this movement that I know from Pilates or yoga. And often what we say is, don't judge the book by its cover or the exercise by its appearance, because it's when we look deeply at the exercise execution or the anatomical focus, that's when we discover the differences. And when I say discover, I not only mean intellectually discover, but somatically discover. Let's do practice first, then conversation about it, also experience, and then practice again. So, basic roll-up preparation starts in a basic long sit, legs hip distance and parallel, or closed, hands behind the knees. You are sitting tall. With your next inhalation, pull your heels towards the sit bones. With your exhalation, release the pull, tilt the pelvis back, curl the spine. With your inhalation, expand the back of the rib cage. With your exhalation, roll forward into spine stretch. With your inhalation, draw or pull your heels towards the sit bones so you're curling up with minimal effort. Release the pull, exhale. Pelvic floor, abdominals engage from the inside out. Keep them engaged as you expand the back of the rib cage. Keep them engaged as you roll forward into spine stretch. And when you inhale and pull heels to sit bones, you gradually release pelvic floor and abdominals and allow your spine extensors to engage. Exhalation, tilt back. Let the breath flow. Now you're going into a very strong pelvic floor abdominal activation, drawing the belly wall back. With your arms, you're sliding the legs towards you and you lift your legs. Press your legs into your hands, resist with your arms, and then roll back very, very slowly. When you have arrived on your lower back, you gradually yet fully relax into restful pose, especially in pelvic floor and abdominals. Inhale to prepare. With your exhalation, engage to your center, lift head and shoulders off the floor, draw your knees away from the chest, big circle with your arms. You're fully engaged in pelvic floor and abdominals, pressing the legs into the hands, slowly rolling up, landing on your feet, spine stretch. And then pull your heels towards the sit bones, roll right on top of them, elongate your spine. Exhalation, tilt. Let the breath flow. Fully engaged in your pelvic floor and abdominals now. You use your arms to lift the legs. You press the legs into the hands to slow down your rolling back motion. When you have arrived on the lumbar area, you release completely. After the full activation, complete relaxation. After a moment of relaxation, you re-engage from the inside out, lift head and shoulders off the floor, press your legs into the hands. Stay engaged in your abdominals. You land with the feet on the floor, spine stretch, and then pull the heels towards the sit bones. Here's a gradual release of pelvic floor and abdominals until you're in a fully elongated position again. So we do this in a lot of our practices, to start, to finish, to transition, and just for its own sake, because it is so good. Let's start going step by step with the basic long sit. You can be hip distance and parallel, absolutely fine. Though we really like adduction. We get a little bit of length in the side of the hips. For many of us, that's a good thing, not to say a necessary thing, every once in a while. And we get a great midline connection, including the adductors into the pelvic floor. And for this particular exercise series, it's very helpful. You also only have one lever, so to say, to stabilize. So it actually is very helpful. The hands behind the knees. Now you feel tactile with your hands. You feel the tendons of your hamstrings. So feel how much tension is in your tendons. Yeah, there's tension. Right? And that's good. You definitely want that. And then isometrically, you pull the heels towards the sit bones and you feel these tendons just getting really taut. So we engage in Anatomy Trains language, the superficial backline here with the gastrocnemius, the hamstrings, and many of us feel it rolls us onto the sit bones. Sometimes we are a little bit behind, now we are right on top, and for some of us also, the spine extensor tone increases. So we are engaging through the back of the body. And then when we release the pull, you feel the tendons go like, okay, nice. They become more pliable again. And then we engage deliberately from the inside to the outside. So pelvic floor, deep abdominals, transverse abdominals, internal obliques, of course also the rectus abdominis and the external obliques. Inside-out activation, the spine extensors, which you previously lightly engaged, are now lengthened. Thoracolumbar fascia tensioned. Hopefully there was glide in there as you were curling back. Then we curl forward. We are keeping a sustained abdominal activation, so isometric in this forward flexion. The top of the head comes close to the knees. For some of us, this is deepening, the spine extensor lengthening. And then we are pulling with the heels towards the sit bones. That's bringing a stimulus into the pelvic floor, though in terms of muscle tone, we gradually release pelvic floor, abdominals, the spine extensors, ideally multividae at the forefront, are segmentally elongating our spine. So let's do this one more time. Let's start with pull. So the back of the body engages. We release the pull, the back of the body engages less, much less. Now we are going to core, pelvic floor, abdominals, but also strength. All of the abdominals are engaged, spine extensors are lengthened. We have a steady activation in pelvic floor and abdominals. We maintain it, therefore we inhale into the back of the rib cage. And here is the shift again. By pulling heels to the sit bones, we're going from an anterior focused activation to posterior. So spine extensor strength, gentle. Ideally, abdominal and pelvic floor tone go right down. They're at the absolute minimum. Now let's go into a basic roll up. It's in part the same, but amplified by a lot. So we start with the pull. Back of the body engages. Minimal pelvic floor abdominal activation. We release the pull. Deliberate inside-out activation of pelvic floor and abdominals. Now it becomes stronger and stronger. We use the arms deliberately, so it's not such a hip flexor intense movement, to slide the legs closer and lift the legs. So here a lot is going on. Your pelvic floor, your abdominals, all of them are fully engaged. This is a 10. 10 is your maximum. So you can breathe freely still, you're not holding your breath. You need to be able to inhale into the back of the rib cage. Therefore, we are preparing it with the feet on the floor. Hip flexors would be prime movers if we take the arms away. So I want to keep hip flexor tone fairly low. Therefore, we use the arms. With our arms, we pull toward. With the legs, we push away. Very little hip flexor tone, which is beautiful, isn't it? Because you can talk, you can breathe, it's not gripping, not holding. It's fabulous. With the arms, you resist. Then we roll very slowly back, and we decelerate this rolling motion by pressing the legs into the hands, and we have the still full activation, and then contrast. We gradually and fully relax. Now we are on the floor, so we can truly relax, and because some of us are a little, we grip a little bit too much, like we shouldn't grip at all, with deep lateral rotators sometimes, or pelvic floor, it's not just strong, but it's really tight. This is fabulous. The sit bones are wide, the pelvic floor is lengthened, it's excellent. Abdominals don't need to do anything, neck flexors are relaxed, hip flexors uninvolved because we are holding the legs with the arms. So we give these muscles and the rest of the body a break. And then we start again. We engage from the inside out, pelvic floor, abdominals. We lift the head, neck flexors, hopefully from deep to superficial. We press the legs into the hands. We are in a full flexion curl, elbows bent, front arm lines engaged. And then by pressing the legs into the hands, we are engaging the hip extensors, again, lessening the tone in the hip flexors. We roll up, land softly, and from this very strong pelvic floor abdominal activation, we go into a lessening to a minimum. The hamstrings engage, but fairly lightly. Now let's just let's do it in a different way, the way it can be done and the way it's sometimes done. So let's take the arms to the front. Let's actually take the feet a little closer. So this is a completely different version. This is not what we do, but it's good for you to probably experience. So you tilt the pelvis back. You engage pelvic floor abdominals fully. You take the heels closer. Now you lift the legs like this, right? So now your hip flexors are holding the legs. Nothing wrong, just very, very different. Okay, so now we are rolling down very slowly. Look at your belly. You want your lower belly flat, so pelvic floor, abdominals fully engaged. You're rolling down very, very slowly onto your lower back, and then you stay, right? And then you can rest your head on the floor just for a moment. Often that's not even done. And then you're lifting head and shoulders off the floor again. And now we are rolling up. And it's a considerable effort, as you can see. For me, you probably felt the same. And then you bring your feet to the floor. So yes, this is certainly a very solid pelvic floor and abdominal exercise. Nothing wrong with it, except for some people, there is something wrong with it. And here's what we need to consider. You need a lot of hip flexors, like a lot. Even in a roll up, sometimes with the legs extended, I hear cues like, relax your hip flexors. Well, that's a little difficult because they have something to do. So you definitely need them. And then the question is, does someone really need to engage their hip flexors more? Monica is behind the camera. She's the camera woman. She is vehemently shaking her head. No, many of us really do not. So that is question number one. Question number two, and I do think statistics hold quite steady over many years now, that for people who can actually fully engage their pelvic floor to a maximum, 10 seconds is maximum, and then sometimes pelvic floor activation decreases, sometimes in a sudden drop. So when we do a roll up movement and we don't relax, or even we did actually put our head onto the floor, but we still had the legs up. That requires a lot of pelvic floor. I mean, that's that's way beyond 10 seconds. So we also sometimes go beyond 10 seconds as we roll down, but therefore we go into restful pose and completely relax so that the pelvic floor can, gather itself, go like, okay, make another effort as we are rolling up. And we have found that although we have these pull, lessen, the pelvic floor tone, and when we are in restful pose, completely relax it and lengthen, we still build excellent strength, but without the excessive pressure or the strain that can come into the movement. So let's experience this again. With joy, we go once each. Inhalation, pull your heels towards the sit bones. With your exhalation, release. Engage from the inside out. Pelvic floor, abdominals. Inhale into the back of the rib cage. And then with your exhalation, roll forward. Steady pelvic floor, abdominal activation. Then you gradually release it. And with your next exhalation, release the pull, tilt back. Let the breath flow, fully engaged in your pelvic floor and abdominals with the help of your hands. You lift the legs, press your legs into the hands, roll back slowly so you really build core strength. And then you relax and you facilitate core ease. Allow the pelvic floor to lengthen and then engaging again. Pelvic floor, abdominals, inside out, head lifts. You press your legs into the hands. You decrease your hip flexor activation. You land softly on the feet. You curl forward. And then once again, you pull and elongate. So here's one more piece that I find is really valuable. And it's a little bit more subtle, let's say, like this, or a little bit harder to relate to than what I spoke about, because the anatomy, what I'm going to speak about, it's not visible. So when we go into a curl, engaging pelvic floor and abdominals, we call this an inside-out engagement. Why inside out? Because we start with the deepest layers. So the deepest layer of the pelvic floor, which is the pelvic diaphragm, the urogenital diaphragm, and then there is the perineum, the superficial perineum. So we are starting on the inside with the pelvic diaphragms in our activation. Into the transversus abdominis, internal obliques, rectus abdominis, the external obliques join in. Literally, we go from the inside out. And then we also have outside-in stimulus. Here, the focus especially on the pelvic floor. And this is a little bit harder to relate to if you don't have the anatomy so clear. Just follow the story as well as you can. And then feel it, imagine it, right? When we pull the heels towards the sit bones, as I said before, we engage the hamstrings. The hamstrings have a fascial connection to the sacrotuberous ligament and to the anococcygeal ligament, which has fascial connections into the pelvic floor. The gluteus maximus also has fascial connections into the pelvic floor. The more superficial aspect of the pelvic floor, like the perineum or the external anal sphincter, but also deep into the coccygeus, so the deepest layer, the pelvic diaphragm. So when we pull the heels towards the sit bones, we not only engage the hamstrings to sit up tall, no, we are making a tensional change in the pelvic floor, and this is Brilliant. So we call this an outside-in access or activation. And then when we are rolling down or when we are rolling back and we are lifting the legs, we have this strong inside-out activation of the pelvic floor. But we also, by pressing the legs into the hands, engage the extensors. So we still have an outside-in stimulus, and it unloads the hip flex, it decreases engagement in the hip flexors, very helpful. We roll all the way back. And then when we hug the knees towards the chest, this also lengthens your gluteus maximus. And when we lengthen gluteus maximus, we also create more lengthening in the pelvic floor directly locally, but also through these outside-in connections. And then you can, if you have been rolling down with Mumu and me, you can roll up again. So here, inside-out activation, outside-in a little bit of a stimulus, and then you're rolling up. The outside-in connections that we use through the extensors that I just described, or through the adductors, it is not only to bring a stimulus in there for more stability, but sometimes to actually be able to relax if the hamstrings or gluteus maximus are tight. Our pelvic floor is not happy. Then I can go many cues.
Remember that part.
Yeah, it's a really important part. Because then I can say, like, relax your pelvic floor. Well, I would love to. However, gluteus maximus and the hamstrings, when they are tight, they have a grip on the pelvic floor. So by doing these dynamic movements, and they seem so unassuming, but it's do them steadily, really incorporate restful pose. You will make your pelvic floor so happy, your hamstrings, your gluteal muscles. There's nothing but benefit, and you also get very strong along the way, just not tight, but truly, truly strong. So, yeah, we love it.
You might become aware when you do that when you then tilt, when Karin said let go, some of you might suddenly become aware that when you engage your pelvic floor, you actually engage also too much through the gluteals. Mm-hmm. But with that, it's a pathway out so that you can really find by first engaging and then letting go. And then you saw how smooth it was. Except when I didn't have my hands, it wasn't so smooth.
No, neither. So I hope you keep enjoying these movements with us, and we could provide you with some useful information for your practice and your teaching if you are a professional.